looks like football, baby.
What up, people? Welcome into the Fantasy Football Smackdown. It's Monday night, August 16th. I'm your host, Kyle August. You can find me on Twitter at KyleMonth8. And with me, as always, apparently the champ is what he just should be known by, rocking a big old championship belt. It's Jake Rip. What up, bro?
What's up? Ups to the show every once in a while.
I was gonna say, all of a sudden, like the intro went away, and I was like, "Oh shoot, this guy's rocking some hardware now." So I'm assuming that's a home league, showing it proud here.
You know what? It's I don't know about home league. Maybe we'll call it my league of record, but it's the big one, man. And yeah, pride in this one. I'll tell you what, though, my name isn't on this sucker just once, in case you were wondering.
Oh, so there we go.
Yeah, no flukes happening here. Each one is earned.
The dude's got receipts of all his championships, folks. I love it. Nothing is worse. I got my big home league, league of record. Yeah, whatever. Like the big one, right? This upcoming Saturday. I'm sure a lot of you guys are getting ready. Usually, this upcoming weekend or the weekend right before Memorial Day. A lot of people are getting their big time drafts in for redraft leagues. And I commish this league. I commish most leagues I'm in. Unfortunately, I don't know why I do this to myself. But anyway, so we have a trophy. It's got to get engraved, right? Yeah. And I've been putting this off, just procrastinating. And so I'm like, oh, shit, I got to get this thing going, right? And nothing just kicks you in the nuts than having to go to a trophy shop and put someone else's name on that sumbitch. That is the worst. So yeah, dude, I am super pumped. We had the Fantasy Football Expo this last weekend. So that was a great time. If you guys were able to make it out there, you already know. And if you didn't, then I definitely suggest taking a look next year. It's going to be, I think, around the same time. I lost my voice because it was loud. I mean, we were killing it.
Jeez, what were you doing? What were you doing down there?
Dude, the party on Saturday night was really solid. They had this really cool area. It's in it was in downtown Canton, which doesn't sound that would be that great, but they do have like this little area that they have like this huge screen. They were playing the Browns preseason game. They have like this turf lawn or whatever. You bring your chair set up there. Apparently they show the Browns games there. They had like bars around this like little park. And the expo had a little section tapered off over there that we were all able to go and hang out and meet some people that now I know their faces, not just their Twitter handles. So it was a great time.
Did you do the Hall of Fame?
I did the Hall of Fame. That was I'd been once like 20 years ago. It was smaller than I remember, but it was still really cool, especially now because I'm like, oh, I know these guys, right? I know, Peyton Manning and Edgerrin James and Randy Moss and Deion Sanders and all these guys, so it's a lot more entertaining now.
Did they add Jamar Chase's jersey yet, or are they waiting to see some numbers?
Just in the gift shop. You wouldn't believe it, man. We were we were wandering around, and my buddy came with me. He's just a fantasy football addict, right? He's not like a content dude. So I was wondering how that experience was going to be because it was a lot of just people like, meeting up for the first time and all that. So a ton of fun. He had a great time, but he was like, oh, I want to get a Justin Fields shirt or jersey or something. I don't know why that he picked that destination. We live in Chicago, readily available here, I would assume. But we went to that shop and they had none. They were like, we're sold out, man. Like we got nothing left. They had Trey Lance, they had Lawrence, they had Chase, but Justin Fields apparently going like hotcakes right now. So
yeah, Justin Fields stock is on the rise. We know it's not Memphis buying all those jerseys.
That's for damn sure. Oh, believe me, our Wednesday night, if you guys missed it, the Q&A last Wednesday night, still good stuff. Go back and check that out. It dropped here on the pod feed as well. But yeah, we got we got Memphis a little bit riled up on Saturday night with that discussion, and I just sat back and laughed. I'm pretty sure Jerry and I were just laughing. Yeah, shout out to Bama, Patreon subscriber. Hung out with him a lot this weekend. Good dude, good times. And yeah, man, Jake, you got to show up next year, man. You got to commit. You got to be there.
All right, I will make my best to make it out there. It's a long haul for me, the old Pittsburgh to Canton road trip.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if I want to hear it. I made the mistake of trying to just do it in 2 days. Like I just went Saturday morning early, left Sunday afternoon, and I was a little bit tired today, but I'm feeling good now because we're going to be talking wide receivers on today's show. We're going to knock out all 32 wide receiver groups in 32 minutes, 60 seconds for each team. If you haven't checked out the last few weeks, we did the same thing with quarterbacks just a couple weeks ago, running backs last week, and we'll wrap it up with tight ends next week as well. But this is the big one, right? Quarterbacks, we got through it, no problem. Jake, you did a great job, steering us as the captain last week through the running backs. I felt that was solid. But now there's so many names on this list today. I'm going to do my best to try to keep us on target, but we will see. If you do have a big draft this weekend, I want to remind you guys our redraft Q&A Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time, right here on YouTube live. If you're following me on Twitter at KyleMonth8, you can drop any questions there to make it onto the show. But the best way to do it is be in the YouTube chat live while we're recording. Those questions get answered first. So if you have any last minute draft prep questions, maybe some tight end questions that we're not going to get to if you're drafting this weekend, because we're doing that next week, then bring them to the show and we will be happy to cover those for you. It'll be Jake, myself, and some other guests, and it's just a good time. It's a great way to just hang out. It's just an hour, and yeah, man, I've really been enjoying those. So we got a couple more still before we get to football season. So I think that about does it for all the other good stuff here. So if you're watching on YouTube, I'm gonna get this stuff situated, but as I do that, Jake, what's the earliest you're taking a wide receiver?
You know what, my friend? I think you saw that today. We, you and I doing a redraft. I have Devonta Adams, and I guess we'll get to plenty of this, but he's in a tier of his own for me. So, if we get to the point where in this draft in particular, I was sitting at the 109, that's in a spot where a lot of the times, even in a 2-quarterback league, you've got most of those real top tier running backs are gone. Like now you're looking at maybe Aaron Jones. Saquon did fall in this one. I like Devonta Adams there, man. He's just got just ridiculous upside. And I think it's an awesome advantage to have over your league, especially if you end up stacking wide receivers, which is something that I'm strongly considering doing here. At least testing the waters and seeing how it goes.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I have Adams and Kelsey are right there for me after, really those top. I have 5 running backs, and then Saquon, if I feel like the news is positive enough, I feel like he's a league winner. Even if he's not Saquon Barkley the first 2-3 weeks, I don't care about that, man. He'll be ready to go when the money's on the line, right? So that's the hope. And so for me right now, I'm considering it right around 7. I'm fine if you want to take the wide receiver there. I think there's plenty of running backs. You could still snag a good one in round 2. That's not that much different. I think that there's, the tier between, as far as Aaron Jones or Jonathan Taylor and who you can get in round 2 right now at the running back position, Najee Harris, Gibson, are some guys that I like that are going to be there in round 2. I don't think those guys are that different versus Adams or Hill, whatever your preference is. Or even Kelsey, those guys are, I think, a step above some of the people in their position. So we're going to dive into every wide receiver group here. We got the timer set, ready to go, 60 seconds apiece. We're going to roll through this thing, AFC, NFC, and we'll just get started right here with the best wide receiver group in the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens, of course. Rashad Bateman already down and injured, going to miss at least a month, maybe more, but you hate to see that for the rookie with a lot of promise with the first-round pick. Marquis Brown, most receptions and yards for a Baltimore wide receiver with Lamar Jackson under center with 769 yards and 58 receptions. And then they brought the corpse of Sammy Watkins into town. Jake, is there any wide receiver that you feel comfortable even drafting out of Baltimore this year?
Ooh, comfortable is not the right word. I'd be willing to take a shot on Sammy Watkins. I use the corpse of AJ Green. I'm not sure if I would do that with Sammy Watkins. I think that there's a chance that he has some sort of resurgence here, especially if Baltimore if they make good on what they're saying as far as wanting to throw the ball more this year. With Rashad Bateman out, I never trusted Marquis Brown really, especially from a consistency standpoint. So I'd be willing to roll the dice with Sammy Watkins as a super late pick.
All right. Well, right at that, 60 seconds. We're off to a good start. I would just note, watch Bateman in those keeper type leagues. You can get him super cheap. All right. On to Cincinnati. This is a big one. We got Jamar Chase going at the end of round 6. T. Higgins right after him. Just a couple spots in round 7. And Tyler Boyd in round 9. The hot rookie pick, top 5 overall. Jamar Chase versus the sophomore T. Higgins. Which way would you go there, Jake?
I'm taking Jamar Chase. I know you're going T. Higgins here still. I understand. It's just something about that LSU connection to me, man. Maybe I'm just reading too much into narrative. But what they did at LSU was freaking magical. The best college football season of all time. So even if a fraction of that can translate to Cincinnati, then I want to be all in on it. I think it's reasonable to expect that even though he has a year of throwing the ball to T. Higgins, that there might just be that edge to Jamar Chase just because they have that pass together. And as far as Tyler Boyd, man, I mean, I like him, but I don't think you can count on him for weekly fantasy production. Like, I think 1,000 yards might be the best case scenario for Tyler Boyd. I like him as a bye week fill-in, but I'm not sure I'd be able to count on him as my wide receiver 3.
Yeah, I like where he's going at the beginning of round 9. I'm fine with that. This offense had 3 wide receivers with 100+ targets last year. I think they can do that again. They can all be fantasy relevant, but I love the value on all 3 of these guys. On to Cleveland. This is a situation. You got Odell Beckham Jr. returning from injury. He's going 25th overall at the position in round 6. And then Jarvis Landry, 41st among receivers, back end of round 9. Are you on the OBJ train, Jake?
Nah, I mean, it's hard to get on the OBJ train. I mean, depending, I guess, on your league mates and their opinions of OBJ, I suppose he could fall to a range where you'd kind of feel obligated to take a shot at him. He's my wide receiver 30. I think you could easily make the case for the next 5 players ranked below him to easily outperform him this year. But he's not even 29 years old yet. So, I mean, I'm not going to call him toast or anything. He's not the corpse of Odell Beckham yet. So I'm not going to rule out the possibility of a nice comeback year this year. Did you mention Donovan Peoples-Jones? Did you say that name?
I did not, but I do have it in my notes. I said last round flyer every league. I'm buying into that kid. I think that there's a good chance one or both of these guys could be on their way out of Cleveland next year. My Jarvis Landry stat, because I have Jarvis 1 spot above OBJ. First 10 games dealing with injuries, 7.3 points per game for fantasy. Last 5 games, he had 3 touchdowns, was getting 3 more targets a game, 15.5 fantasy points per game. I think there's life in Jarvis Landry. He's going to be one of my favorite round 9 picks. There we go. Snuck Jarvis Landry notes. All right, on to Pittsburgh. Very similar to the Cincinnati situation. 3 mouths to feed. You got Deante Johnson going at 22nd overall in round 5. Claypool at the end of round 6, and then Juju mid-round 7. Who's your favorite of this group? Because honestly, I don't think it's as far apart, personally, for me as ADP shows. So who's your favorite?
I have it a little further apart. I mean, it's Deontay Johnson for me. Ben seems to have some sort of connection with this guy. Deontay Johnson was averaging around 11 targets per game. I mean, that is elite wide receiver 1 volume. I think where's ADP have him? Wide receiver 22. Man, I've got him as my wide receiver 14.
Dang.
I think I got him way up there. I think that there's mad upside in this offense. And that's not to say that Chase Claypool or Juju Smith-Schuster can't be good. It's just that there's going to be enough passing volume for everyone to be relevant. And Deontay Johnson, like this isn't one of those situations where I think that I would just like let the cheapest stealer fall to me. I think I'm willing to reach a little bit for a guy that's going to have volume, like I'm anticipating with Deontay.
Yeah, I like the call. He's definitely a target monster. I'm sure we'll talk about Juju more later in the show because he is my guy. He's at 24 for me, 6 spots above ADP. We're moving on. I don't know if we'll use the whole 60 seconds for this group because I don't know that it's a group. It's the Houston Texans. We're moving on to the AFC South. Brandon Cooks last year, monster year, but we all know there's no Deshaun Watson, which means Brandon Cooks drops all the way down to wide receiver 40 towards the back of round 9. How do you like that value?
I love that value, dude. I mean, Brandon Cooks might end up being the steal of the draft for the wide receiver position. I mean, we're talking about the wide receiver 1, even if it's in a crappy offense, going as the wide receiver 40 overall. If what I don't know, maybe it's like a 50-50 chance right now that Watson might play, but even if he doesn't, like you're not taking any risk there at wide receiver 40. I saw something came out today where Anthony Miller is going to be sidelined for a week or 2. That's just even more opportunity for Brandon Cooks. Now, the only other target competition behind him is rookie Nico Collins. So we've seen Cooks do it with multiple NFL teams, 1,000-yard seasons with multiple NFL teams. The Texans offense is going to be so bad, man. But there's major value, I think, at wide receiver 40.
Yeah, and Cooks has never really been a target guy. He's only had over 120 targets one time. That was just 129 way back in his New Orleans days. But 11 points per game in 6 out of his last 7 seasons. The dude is just consistent. I think that's great value. I think steal the draft is pretty spot on. All right, let's go to Indianapolis here. You got Michael Pittman going around 11, T.Y. Hilton going around 13. Both these guys are outside the top 45 at the position, and Paris Campbell pretty much undrafted right now. with the Wentz injury on top of it, are you excited about any of these guys, and which one would you prefer?
Again, the words you're using, I'm not going to say I'm excited about them, but I would be willing to take a shot on Michael Pittman. I've talked before about T.Y., how I liked him as a late round dart throw. I've backed off that stance a little bit, but everything I'm hearing out of Colts camp is that Michael Pittman is a beast. He's lighting it up. He's my wide receiver 39, man, and that seems too low for me, like especially if he is going to be the wide receiver 1 in this offense. At the end of the year, how different do you figure his stats will be from Odell, who both of us have ranked 10 or so spots higher? Like they could probably realistically be pretty close. So I'll have to maybe reassess my Pittman ranking because I think I got him a little too low.
Yeah, I think round 11 is solid enough for Pittman. If he goes any higher, I was just surprised when I looked. He actually played 13 games despite being injured, and his stats were not impressive. So got to look for that sophomore breakout now. I know we've seen a bunch of rookies jump right into it. We might be looking at another three-headed monster, maybe not to the level of some of these other ones, but on to Jacksonville. DJ Shark working his way back from injury. He's currently going in the 8th round, and then double digits, round 10 for Shenault, round 12 for Marvin Jones. Who's your man from this trio?
Oh, man. If I had to pick a man, I think it's probably going to be Laviska Shenault. This is a situation opposite of what I said with the Steelers, where it's like, okay, I may be willing to reach for a guy here. I think I would just take whatever Jacksonville Jaguar fell to me at this point, because this is a situation where, like, no one can say for sure that Marvin Jones is going to lead the team in targets, or that Chark will, or Shenault, or maybe one of them doesn't have more targets than ETN. The offense is going to be a big question mark. I think that they all have big upside, obviously, with Trevor Lawrence, but unfortunately, all three of those players also have an extremely low floor, in my opinion. But I like the versatility of Laviska Shenault. I think they're going to find ways to get him the football. So that's probably the one that I'm more confident with. If I'm going to rank them in order, I think I like Laviska, Marvin Jones, DJ Shark in that order.
There you go. Which Shark is at the top of ADP. And I'm with you there. I would take the cheapest guy. Marvin Jones is going almost 5 rounds later than Shark. Give me that guy.
Yeah.
All right. We're headed to, I lost my spot here. Last team in the South, Tennessee. How could I forget? We got A.J. Brown going 8th among wide receivers, late 2nd. And your boy, Julio Jones, I just give you the floor. Are we buying into Julio Jones, the Titan?
Yeah, man, I got to make sure I always wear my Julio freaking Jones shirt on this show. Yeah, I'll buy in so long as he's healthy. I know he's already had a couple of little hiccups in training camp, but dude, he's one of the best receivers of all time. The dude's an animal. As far as relates to AJ Brown, though, dude, I mean, I feel like he's going to be a top 5 wide receiver this year. I really feel like I view the addition of Julio Jones as a positive thing for AJ Brown. I'm buying into that whole, in the sense that it should open up the field for AJ Brown to do what he does, take some of that defensive attention away from AJ Brown, put it on Julio. Now watch what AJ Brown can do to defenses. Mm-hmm. And I'd be willing to bet that AJ Brown falls in a lot of drafts because people are going to be scared that Julio's coming in and all of a sudden he's going to command X amount of targets. And so he's going to steal targets away from AJ Brown. That's going to be a lot of people's mindset. And that mindset is wrong. AJ Brown's going to be just on fire this year.
Late 2nd right now, ADP on AJ Brown. I love that. Mid 4th for Julio. I don't know. I'd probably need him to drop around for him to be on any of my teams this year. But I'm hoping this is a high-powered offense for fantasy owners' sake. All right, let's move on to the East. Stefan Diggs, monster season last year. Most catches, most targets. Going 3rd right now, early 2nd. And then you just have the group of Beasley, Gabriel Davis, and Emmanuel Sanders. So where do you have Stefan Diggs? And then if you had to pick one of these other Buffalo wide receivers, who would you pick?
Diggs is my wide receiver 5. It's super, super hard for me to push him one spot lower than that. 166 targets last year, 127 catches, 1,500 yards, and 8 touchdowns. And I really don't think there's any reason to expect regression from the guy. I mean, he's the real deal. I think the only way this pick may be bust is if Josh Allen crashes and burns. It's a possibility. But as far as the second guy in this offense, that's tricky, man. You have to really sell me on the second guy in this offense because I think it could be one of any of those 3 guys: Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley, Gabe Davis. What it comes down to is I don't think the wide receiver 2 in this offense is even going to be have enough fantasy value to be maybe rosterable, but not be able to count on him week to week.
I agree. I think the correct answer might just end up being none.
Yeah, right.
And just pick them up for bye week fill-ins or injury replacements. I don't know if I'm drafting any of those other 3 guys, but Diggs is a monster. It's early, round 2, but still can't argue with those targets. All right, moving on to Miami. This is you got Will Fuller on a 1-game suspension. They spend a first-round pick on Jalen Waddle, and you still got Devontae Parker there, but they're actually going Fuller, Waddle, Parker in ADP round 9, 10, and 12. So you don't have to pay up for any of these guys, but do we believe in Will Fuller, or and do you think Waddle in round 10, almost round 11? Do you think that's good value?
Yeah, I think so, given the upside. This is another one where, like, although Will Fuller, he has the higher ADP, but I feel like more often than not, especially in home league drafts, like Jalen Waddle, that's the sexy name, right? That's the name that we know that got drafted in the first round. I think a lot of times he's going to be the one who's coming off the board first. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but I think that there's big time value to be had with Will Fuller, even though he's going to miss that 1 game this year. And we've talked about it plenty of times on this show. He was wide receiver 5 through 12 weeks last season. He was getting 100 yards every other game. He was finding the end zone every single game. The dude was just elite as it gets. I think a lot of people forget that, and they want to discount it on account of the suspension. But the dude's a playmaker. Him and Waddle, I think one of those guys is going to end up being a big time value.
Yeah, and I think for around 9 and 10, I think those are great values. I don't mind taking the stab on those. Either of those players. One team that we might not be taking wide receivers, New England. They're pretty much all undrafted right now. Nelson Aguilar is outside the first 17 rounds. Jacoby Myers led the team last year, led the wide receivers with 81 targets. That was with the New England Patriots tight ends combined as an entire unit, got 34 targets. So, I mean, are any of these guys usable, or is it just like, call me when Mac Jones starts?
Yep, you took the words right out of my mouth. These players mean nothing to me if Cam Newton's the quarterback. Maybe we see some flashes from Nelson Aguilar if Mac Jones takes over and he's marginally more accurate than Cam Newton, which really isn't saying much. But at the end of the day, you know it, Kyle, the offense is just, they're going to be focused on running the ball, utilizing their flashy new tight ends in the passing game. There's just not a ton of opportunity for New England wide receivers, even if the best case scenario happens and Mac Jones comes in and he's really good. It's hard to get optimistic about any of those 3 guys. Maybe Jacoby from a passing perspective. He might have been their leading passer last year too.
Yeah, he had 0 touchdowns receiving, but 2 passing. So yeah, maybe when Mac Jones rolls around, you can kind of keep an eye on it. But I'm going to be hands off as well. Moving on to the Jets, Corey Davis is going in back end around 11, 49th overall. Elijah Moore round 13, and right now Jameson Crowder is still hanging on 60th at the receiver position. And Mims is apparently just gone. The dude doesn't even play with the starters anymore. So with a rookie quarterback, do you think any of these guys are going to end up on your team this year?
No, I don't think any of them are going to end up on my team, but I do think that there is a realistic chance that Corey Davis ends up being the guy who proves to have the most fantasy value of all the Jets receivers here. I know all the hype's around Elijah Moore, and we're all excited about that. And I think the dude's going to be a stud, but I mean, at the end of the day, he's a rookie. He's unproven. Corey Davis kind of had a solid season last year. He's got the pedigree for what that's worth. But who knows? I guess ultimately it's going to come down to Zack Wilson and how he plays. But yeah, I'm not going to get excited for any of the receivers in the Jets offense. Guess I'll leave it at that with 5 seconds.
I'll get a little excited for Corey Davis. I do have him ranked at wide receiver 35. If he's going around 11, give me that every day of the week. I think he is there to play the outside. Moore and Crowder can play inside. That's fine. I think that nobody else does what Davis does on that team. Reports are good, but I hope they keep quiet for at least another week so I can grab Corey Davis. All right, let's move on to we're going to the West. So we got Denver. Cortland Sutton is first off the board in ADP, beginning of round 8, wide receiver 31 off the board, with Jerry Judy 36th at the receiver position, just a few spots behind in round 8. Which one of those 2 Denver wide receivers do you prefer?
It's Jerry Judy, and that's going to be a fun storyline to follow this season because I feel like a lot of fantasy gamers are kind of torn, or they have him ranked really closely like we do. I've got Sutton as my wide receiver 29 and Judy as wide receiver 25. It's so hard to decide between the 2 guys because before Sutton went down, we were viewing him as the next big elite alpha of the NFL. Like, this guy's going to be a superstar. And then all of a sudden, when he's not in the picture and they draft this superstar route runner out of Alabama, he looks like he's going to be the next superstar. And now Jerry Judy's just putting on an absolute clinic in Broncos training camp. Every video I'm seeing on Twitter is absolutely incredible. So maybe I am just buying into training camp narrative, but Jerry Judy is something special, man. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I would go Judy as well. I think there can only be one I'm fine with the 8th round value though, and as long as they're both heading out there, I'm fine taking that. But I have Judy about 5-6 spots ahead, so that's where I would go. Kansas City, we all know Tyreek Hill. He's a first rounder probably in a lot of places. The dude's a monster, 17 total touchdowns last year. Mecole Hardman, Pringles or something. I don't know. Are we messing around with any of these guys?
Nope. I think Tyreek Hill is the only wide receiver worth rostering in the offense. He's my wide receiver 2. Your wide receiver 2, I believe.
Yep.
Wide receiver 2, I believe. But I'd be lying if I said it wasn't close for for the wide receiver 2 spot between guys like Tyreek Hill and Stefan Diggs. I think you can make the argument for. Hopkins is in the same tier. Calvin Ridley has a very, very, very good shot to outperform Tyreek Hill this year. So I'm not going to reach for Tyreek Hill like I might for Devonta Adams. What Tyreek had, like 15 touchdowns last year. I don't know if it's fair to say I expect that to regress, but I do. I think that number comes down a little bit. I don't necessarily see the yardage coming up. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and make the case for Tyreek Hill to finish outside the top 5 or anything, but I'm just saying I think there's a case to be made that he's not the clear-cut wide receiver 2, even though that's where I have him ranked.
Yeah, he needs those touchdowns. He was the clear-cut last year. He was 2.5 points per game better than Diggs, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, it was 15 receiving touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, just to throw a cherry, because if anybody needs more touchdowns, it was Tyreek Hill last year. Jeez.
Certainly.
All right, we're going to the Chargers. This man is going 9th overall in ADP. That's where I have him. But in the mid-3rd round, my God, can we put some respect on the name Keenan Allen? Jake, you are flying the flag for this man. You got him at number 6, bro.
Yeah, this dude never gets any respect, and especially after what he did last season. Come on, I think Keenan Allen's as safe as it gets for wide receivers. Like, what you're getting out of him. He's my wide receiver 6. I think you can lock in 150 targets easy. That's the floor if he's healthy. But even beyond Keenan Allen, like, I love the upside of Mike Williams. He's my wide receiver 38. I think I'm way higher than ADP on Mike Williams. He's not going to come close to Keenan Allen in receptions, but he's a big play guy. He could easily score more touchdowns and have a relatively similar yardage total, I think, or at least he can be in that ballpark given the big play threat that he is. Justin Herbert is an animal, man. I think that he can support 2 fantasy relevant wide receivers, all while peppering Austin Eckler with targets.
Allen's got 4 straight years of 135 or more targets, which is insanity. He had 147 last year in 14 games. That includes the games that he lied to us and told us to play him in our championship matchups. But 13 or more fantasy points in each of those last 4 years. The dude's as safe as it gets, I think. And he's got a stud QB. So I love it, man. I love your ranking of Keenan Allen, but let's move on to the Las Vegas Raiders. These guys, Henry Ruggs is really the only guy being drafted right now. End of round 11, 50th overall. Even the hype machine, Bryan Edwards, he's almost undrafted. He's going in the 18th round in ADP over at Fantasy Pros, 73rd overall. And then John Brown's actually sandwiched between them. So are you taking Ruggs at around 11 value? And do you think Edwards is a sleeper?
No, I'm not, and no, I don't. I'm just not touching the Las Vegas Raiders this year. No, I think that they have a good chance to have the number 1 overall pick next year. I think this early season schedule for the Raiders is so gnarly, and I think one of the most important things in fantasy football is getting off to a good start. Like, that dictates how you can play the entire rest of the year, how you trade, how you set your lineup. Like, everything's going to depend. If you're 4-0, you're going to play different than if you're 0-4. And I think you're gonna really not like playing any of these Raiders in these first few games. I'm fairly confident of that.
Since Darren Waller's been there the last 2 years, no Raiders receiver has more than 82 targets.
Oh,
That's good luck. And it's been since 2017 that one had more than 90. So, yikes. You can take the shot on Edwards because he's free, but my God, best of luck to you, good sir. All right, that wraps up the AFC. We're moving to the NFC North. We're right here in Chicago. We got Allen Robinson, ADP, wide receiver 11, back end of round 3. I like that. It seems Keenan Allen-esque a little bit, just some nice wide receiver value in round 3. Darnell Mooney, despite the Twitter hype, is going mid-round 12. So really, I think the biggest question with this team is, do you think there's a second guy? Like, do you think Mooney's worth the shot in round 12?
Nope, not at all. I'd rather take a shot on maybe a higher upside guy, maybe a higher upside rookie. But with A-Rob, like he's one of those guys, like I say with Keenan Allen, like, oh, this is as safe as it gets. Like I kind of feel the same way with Allen Robinson. It's hard to picture him possibly falling out of that top 12 wide receiver 1 range. I have A-Rob as my wide receiver 10. It makes no difference for me who's starting at quarterback. You could argue that there's obviously a higher ceiling for A-Rob if Fields comes in and he tears it up. But you could also argue that there's more safety and stability in a veteran quarterback such as Andy Dalton being under center. So either way, and we've seen Allen Robinson with bad quarterbacks, only with bad quarterbacks in the past. The dude's as good as it gets. He's gonna be a wide receiver 1.
Either quarterback is the best quarterback he's ever played with, for real. And Darnell Mooney, like we think that's like, oh, he's going to get a shot. He had 98 targets last year. I know those are Mitch Trubisky targets, but like the dude already got some. So I mean, I think round 12 is fine. I thought he'd be a little bit higher, but I think that's right where he should be, not an inch higher. All right, Detroit. There's no one's going. Amon-Ra St. Brown is in round 17, so that's probably undrafted in most leagues. You got Tyrell Williams there. He saw a lot of snaps the other night. My God, are we touching anything? Is this a New England situation?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It's exactly a New England situation. I like me some Amon-Ra St. Brown for Dynasty. I'll try to get pieces of him all over the place from a Dynasty perspective. But for redraft, it really just feels like it's going to be the TJ Hawkinson show. I feel like Swift is going to catch a lot of balls, and then it's going to be just an even distribution among Amon-Ra St. Brown. Tyrell Williams, man, you could argue maybe has a little bit of upside. He's popped in the past, but yeah, I'm not getting excited over any of these guys from Detroit. I mean, I can't even imagine like a midway ceiling for any of these 3 guys.
No, Williams would be the one guy that I would take a shot on, but yeah, he's got to be free. That's pretty much it. All right, Green Bay. I don't know if you heard Aaron Rodgers. He back, so that's good. Devonta Adams seems to be the consensus wide receiver 1. He's going in the first round. And then Aaron Rodgers brought back his good old buddy, Randall Cobb. Find someone who loves you as much as Aaron Rodgers loves Randall Cobb, apparently. But Cobb's going in round 16, so borderline undrafted. Allen Lazard even further back after that. Is there a wide receiver 2 to own in fantasy for you?
As of now, I'm gonna say no. Maybe somewhere midway through the season, because it seems like this always kind of happens. Like, I remember Allen Lazard coming through and having a couple big games here and there. So maybe if he clings on to someone, maybe Amari Rodgers becomes something. Maybe he goes back to Randall Cobb, but at the end of the day, it's the Devonta Adams show, and then I'm probably not interested in the wide receiver 2 for Green Bay. He's my clear-cut wide receiver 1. Don't even have to think about it. He's in a tier of his own. He's the only guy who's got 20 touchdown upside, like legit 20 touchdown upside and 1,500 yards. Like you could throw these crazy numbers out there that seem unattainable, but it's possible. If Rodgers goes out there and decides to just go nuclear on the league like he did last year in his last ride with Green Bay, I'm excited for it, man. I think it's gonna be pretty cool.
I am worried about a Rodgers regression, but I think Adams is still the wide receiver 1. And 20 of those touchdowns, that could be all Rodgers has, and they could all go to Adams.
I think it's very reasonable to expect Rodgers regression because he had such a ridiculous season last year. But I'm telling you, at the same time, there's something to like the human element of football. Like the fact that he's going into this with, I guess you could say, a chip on his shoulder. They've made it clear via social media that him and Devonta Adams, this is it. This is their last shot. Like they're gonna leave it all out there. Is all I'm saying. I don't think that, dude. I don't expect much regression. I'll just say it. Call me a psycho, but I think that Devonta Adams is gonna be just as good this year.
All right, there you go. Minnesota, Justin Jefferson going right there with AJ Brown. He's 7th overall. Back end of round 2. I have him at 8. You have him at 11. I think so. We're kind of on the same page there. We would both prefer AJ Brown, so we'll just leave it at that. What I really want to talk about is this boy, Adam Thielen, 18th off the board wide receiver, back end of round 4. Jake, tell the people why they shouldn't be drafting Adam Thielen there.
Well, yeah, listen, I backed up on my Adam Thielen stance a little bit too. Actually, I think we both.
I was proud of you. I was proud of you with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. I think we both got him ranked somewhere in the same range now, but I think there's still some upside to be had with Adam Thielen. I'm not out on him by any means. It's just there's so many other names that you can put ahead of Adam Thielen and see him having a better season. As far as Justin Jefferson goes, where do I have him? Wide receiver 11.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a little lower on him than consensus, but I kind of figured that would be the case even back in January. Just people, balls deep in Justin Jefferson's rookie season, but Yeah, I don't know, man. I think if you want to talk regression, I think maybe there's a little bit coming Justin Jefferson's way.
I think that regression comes via Adam Thielen, the dude. Third in touchdowns, 14 touchdowns, only on 108 targets. That was it. 23rd in the league, bro.
Hey, Peter, you hear that?
Shut up, Kyle.
No. You talk about Aaron Rodgers taking a step back. At least Rodgers has done that before. Kirk Cousins, 35 touchdowns last year. That was 5 more than he's ever had in his entire career. And that was only the second time he's gone over 30. Those touchdowns are going to be evaporating. Jefferson can still maintain with that yardage. Thielen, see ya. No thanks. Outside the top 24.
What do you think, Peter?
Shut up, Kyle.
Get out of here. We're moving on. Jeez. The South. Oh, your Atlanta Falcons. Here we go. Calvin Ridley, top 5. I guess we got that. Who's the wide receiver 2 here? Kyle Pitts. That's it. Is that it?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be Kyle Pitts. And you want to say Calvin Ridley top 5, dude. I mean, and this isn't exactly a hot take right now, but Calvin Ridley, very, very real shot at wide receiver 1 overall. 143 targets last season in a year where Julio was getting 8 targets per game. I think that as the bona fide wide receiver 1 in an offense that might will probably throw the ball more than anyone else in the league, I would love to hear the argument for taking Ridley outside the top 5. You
won't hear it here.
Okay, very good. But if you want to talk like the actual, there might be some wide receiver 2 value, like actual wide receiver 2 value in this offense. Russell Gage, man, he's low key pretty solid. I expect him to see a couple more footballs this year, and we can talk about him a little more at the end of the show.
Oh, spoiler! There you go. Hang out for that. God, I love Calvin Ridley. I'm so glad that we got on that train last year, and I'm still paying that second round price for him. He's worth it. Yep. All right, Carolina. Could this be a 3-headed monster too? We got DJ Moore right now going in round 5, Robbie Anderson back in around 7, and then Terrace Marshall, right undrafted as of right now, but Terrace Marshall out of a big time plays. That's going to get people attention. Who are you going with in Carolina? What's your thoughts on this group?
Well, DJ Moore is the guy. I don't think it's very close, but excuse me. I think Robbie Anderson's probably a little underrated. When it comes down to the big picture, like I believe in Sam Darnold. I've made my feelings clear about that. I think he's at least an average to above average quarterback in the league. And I think that's all that this wide receiver trio needs. But like there's something about I love the pre-existing rapport, you could call it, or chemistry, you might even say, that he has with Robbie Anderson coming from the Jets. Like that means something to me. And Robbie Anderson quietly had 1,000 yards last season, but he only scored 3 touchdowns. So if he can find a way to get him into the end zone more, then with an increase of touchdowns, we can see Robbie Anderson sneaking into the top 30 wide receivers, I think.
Anderson played 1 more game than DJ Moore, but had 18 more targets. That surprised the living hell out of me. I was like, what are you doing? And I was saying, what am I doing to myself? Because I had Robbie Anderson buried and moved him right. He's right around 35th for me, which is right about where he's going in ADP. I think that's a great value at the back end around 7. You get around 8. I love it. All right. Oh, there we go. Moving on to New Orleans. Michael Thomas. The 26th right now. What are we doing? Round 6, Michael Thomas? Are you touching him there?
No, we're not
doing, right? No.
We're not drafting Michael Thomas, man, but I'm kind of excited about this Marquez Callaway character. I'm buying into all of the Callaway hype that we're getting out of Saints camp. At the end of the day, someone has to step in and play that Michael Thomas role and be the wide receiver 1 for the Saints, and all signs point to Callaway being that guy. It's super difficult to project any stat line, what we might expect for him. We don't even know who the starting quarterback is, but if Jameis gets some playing time and we get flashes of what happened in Tampa Bay, then Callaway might just go out there and put on a clinic. I've got him right now as my wide receiver 33. That's
insanity.
You think that's insanity?
Yes,
too high?
I absolutely do.
Oh,
Thomas is, as much as I'm not drafting Michael Thomas, he ain't dead. He'll be back.
Oh yeah, dude, he's dead. You didn't hear?
He'll be back by mid-year. So I don't know. Callaway, I like Callaway as a flyer for sure. He's pretty much going undrafted right now. But I take him as high as round 13. I think, or even, a little bit higher than that maybe. But
I remember when AJ Green was going to come back mid-year.
I guess we'll see, but I don't know. Around top 35 seems a little rich for me. But hey, there you go. You heard it here first, maybe. I've heard a lot of hype, but I don't know about that much hype.
You remember when CeeDee Lamb, Dynasty wide receiver 1, was a little rich? We all remember when Antonio Brown, as a top 36 wide receiver, was a little rich? We're ahead of the game here. We're ahead of the curve on this show, Kyle.
And great transition because we're going to Tampa. You got Evans and Godwin pretty much. They're going back-to-back 13, 14 off the board. And then AB, way cheaper, 38th off the board in round 9. So round 4 for the duo up top, but then round 9 for AB. I mean, value-wise, of when you consider value, AB is your favorite, right?
Absolutely. My stance has not changed all offseason. I can't figure out how you would justify taking either Mike Evans or Chris Godwin at their current ADP when AB has literally the same, if not more upside than both players, and he's going multiple rounds later. And I think I've referenced this stat before on this show, but in the one game last season where he had a snap share above 78%, AB torched the Falcons for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yeah, the Falcons. Get over it. It was still a good game. But dude, those kind of games, like that's still in his arsenal. We want to think of AB now as crazy off his rocker AB, but he's still one of the best receivers in football. No one likes to hear that now because we like to think of him being three years removed from being the best receiver in football. But those kind of crazy games are in his arsenal. This has been his first preseason now in a while. Full healthy preseason, no drama leading up to it. I think there's going to be big time things coming from Antonio Brown. I don't know why you would rather have Mike Evans 5 rounds later or 5 rounds earlier.
I agree. I love the value on AB right now. Beginning around 9. Why not? He was just playing just as well as those other guys, and he's discounted by 5 rounds. I think I can take that shot. All right. Moving on to the East, to the division winning Dallas Cowboys. CeeDee Lamb, the hype, it's here, it's come, it's gone. The dude is going at the early 4th now. He'll creep into the 3rd probably in most of your drafts. Wide receiver 12 off the board. And then you have Amore Cooper, who's back at practice off the pup. Now he's going mid 4th, but wide receiver 16 off the board. You're going Lamb over Cooper?
I'm going Lamb over Cooper. It took me a long time to get there, man. And maybe for me, it's just an upside play. And when I say I'm taking Lamb over Cooper, like I've got them separated by 2 spots right now in my rankings. Like they are neck and neck. But the edge goes to CeeDee Lamb for me because I feel like there's this untapped ceiling with CeeDee Lamb. Like we know he's going to have this epic rapport with Dak Prescott that we only got a glimpse of last year. I think CeeDee Lamb's well on his way to being one of, if not the best wide receiver in football, I guess is the best way to put it. Not to say that Amore Cooper isn't going to be epic because he will be, but I think there's just that extra gear that CeeDee Lamb's going to have that gives him the edge over Amari. Yeah, we both have Lamb at 10, Cooper 12. If the Lamb hype keeps going up, I'm going to own a lot of Amore Cooper because I think he's right there. So if that gap becomes a little bit wider. And then Michael Gallup round 11, mid round 11. Why the hell not? He's going to be on a lot of my teams this year, a lot, and we'll see. But I forgot to hit that.
There you go. Glad we got that one in there. Let's move on to the Giants. We got free agent signee Kenny Gallaudet now in town. He's going wide receiver 23 off the board, early round 6, and then it's just a mess with Shepard, Slayton, and Tony. Obviously they have Evan Ingram there to take targets and Barkley as well. So I guess the biggest question for me is Gallaudet is injured. Are we taking him in round 6?
I originally really liked the idea of Kenny Gallaudet coming back, being the alpha number 1 in offense. Like last time we saw him, he was wide receiver 5 or something in fantasy football. Like the dude's got it in his game. But everything I'm hearing out of Giants camp is that he's disappointing. He's underperforming. He doesn't look good. When we made our initial rankings, I had him way up there, some sort of egregious ranking, but I've dropped them now down to wide receiver 26. Mm-hmm. I think the Giants offense as a whole is not going to look great. And until I hear some positive news about Kenny Gallaudet, it's hard to justify taking him over any of the other players that I have ranked just above him.
Yeah, there's a lot of players behind him in ADP I would take, so I probably won't end up with much Kenny G this year. Just a little bit scary. Like you said, the reports coming out are not great, and it seems really crowded there right now with really no one jumping out, but that doesn't make it any better. So let's move on to Philly, and I'll say this right off the top here. Devonta Smith, 8th round, 32nd wide receiver off the board. I'll tag him right now as the most overdrafted wide receiver. I do not want this man at all. This Philly offense is going to be tough anyway for receivers. I think Goddard and even Ertz can be the one too. in that offense, and this guy's already a little bit banged up, working his way back. So I don't mind taking him a little later than that, but I have him nowhere near ranked 32nd among wide receivers. So maybe I'm just a biased Cowboys fan. So I'll just kick it to you, Jake. What's your thoughts on these Philly wide receivers?
Nah, that ranking's a little optimistic for me. Like I've said before on the show plenty of times that I'm a fan of Jalen Hurts from a fantasy perspective, but how that translates to what you get out of the wide receivers. You said it yourself with the tight ends, the running backs are going to catch some balls. None of these wide receivers in Philly really piqued my interest. There's huge upside, I guess, in Devonta Smith, a guy who's coming off of a historic collegiate year at Alabama. But it's just, I could easily see a player like Rondale Moore finishing with similar stats to Devonta Smith or better at the end of the year. He's got just such a wide range of outcomes that I'd rather take a player with a little more stability or someone I have a little more confidence in than Devonta Smith in that spot.
Among the rookies, he's going 2 rounds behind Chase, but he's going 2.5 rounds ahead of Waddle. And Waddle's the third rookie off the board. Doesn't make any sense to me.
No.
I will take the discount and take the shot on Elijah Moore even later. Waddle 2.5 rounds later. Definitely give me those guys. Smith's got to drop. He's around 9-10 guy, and that's only when I'm considering him. Moving on to the Washington football team. They will have a name next year, but we're talking about 2021. Terry McLaurin, he's going at wide receiver 10 off the board, mid-round 3. I'm going to get it to you because you have him ranked a little bit further down, but you look at it last year, he had played the same number of games. He had 1 less target, same number of catches as Tyreek Hill. He had 150 yards less and 17 touchdowns compared to 4. People are banking on those touchdowns because, dude, 10th seems rich to me, and I have him at 13. But what's your thoughts on Scary Terry in 2021?
That was the exact thoughts. Like, why? I mean, there's so many good wide receivers in that range. To put Terry up there at wide receiver 10, he's my wide receiver 17. I think that feels that's way more reasonable to me. I don't expect to ever get him there, and I'm fine with that. But I think that we're all just so set on the idea that like Ryan Fitzpatrick is this gunslinger Hall of Fame level quarterback. Like, I know I'm exaggerating a little bit there, but there's like this, I don't know, there's some allure to it that people get drawn to. It's the Fitz magic. If Matt Stafford signs in Washington, then maybe I'll talk Terry McLaurin wide receiver 10, but I'm not sold that Ryan Fitzpatrick's going to go in there and light it up. Maybe that's an improvement on Dwayne Haskins, but I'm not sold on it. It's not enough for me to take Terry at wide receiver 10.
Yeah, I got him just outside of the top 12. Like I said, I think it'll be fine, but I'm with you. And he is in the Hall of Fame. He's in the Gunslinger Hall of Fame. That's what he does. I think that could mean he loses his job, and that's where it gets scary. So real quick on Samuel, mid-round 10 right now, dealing with an injury that may go up a bit. But if he stays in the double digits, I don't mind taking a shot just to see how that one pans out. A lot of people excited about him being there. All right, let's go on. We're going last division here, NFC West. Arizona, Hopkins, monster last year, mid-round second. We have him at 4. Both of us, he's going at 4th off the board. What it really comes down to, is there a second wide receiver that interests you? I think we know the answer, but I'll give you one more opportunity to say the name.
Yeah, I'll say it a little louder for the people in the back. Rondale Moore, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to be good considering his only real target competition on that offense. To me, it looks like it's going to be AJ Green. And this is one that I never really understood because I feel like the entire fantasy community, all fantasy gamers seem to be on board with AJ Green being dust, being washed up. But not everyone's on board with Rondale Moore having a breakout freshman season in the league. The guy's on another level athletically, and I think it's just going to mesh so well in that offense. Cliff Kingsbury is going to know how to use him, and I just love that Kyler Murray to Rondale Moore hookup. I think that he's going to have significant fantasy relevance this season, not just be I think he might have weekly fantasy relevance.
Yeah, and Kyler throws the ball a ton. I think there's enough for a second guy there. It's not like a tight end of note or even a running back, really, that I think is going to take away a bunch of work. So if I'm taking a shot, it's Rondale Moore. All of these guys are pretty much free. So take your pick, and I agree with you. Why not? Take the rook. All right, the Rams. We got Robert Woods going 17th among receivers, Cooper Kupp at 19th. Woods is going mid-4th, Cooper Kupp early round 5. Which one would you prefer of that duo?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that question, dude. I don't know. Flip a coin. I really don't know. Because it's all going to come down to the amount of touchdowns that Cooper Kupp gets, right? If he goes back to that double-digit touchdown life he was living a couple years ago, then I think you could easily say Cooper Kupp. Mm-hmm. Right now, I see in our rankings we both have Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp right next to each other. You have Kupp Woods, I have Woods Kupp, which seems about right to me, and kind of like where everyone else is on these two. I haven't seen anyone hit me with any definitive stats or evidence or reasoning on why one player should be taken over the other. But one thing I could tell you for sure is one of these guys is going to be awesome, very, very awesome, like elite wide receiver 2. I'm thinking awesome.
I like both these guys. I think they can both be high end 2s. I think Kupp's going to be, he could be a 1. Just to speed this along, we would both take both Rams receivers over the Godwin Evans combo. Yes. And that is not ADP right now. With Godwin Evans going 13-14, these guys going 17-19 off the board. So take that for what you will. San Francisco, Brandon Ayuk, man, he had a stud performance there in those 6 games, just monster, 17 points per game towards the mid back of last year. He's going wide receiver 24 in round 6. Deebo Samuel is round 7, almost round 8, 35th off the board at receiver. What's your thoughts on Ayuk heading into his sophomore season?
I like Ayuk. I love the player. Given current ADP, you said Ayuk's going a round and a half earlier than Deebo?
About a round and a half.
Yeah, I think at that point, I would rather go with Deebo Samuel. Ooh. I think I view these guys as kind of similar players, kind of similar ceilings. And when Deebo's been healthy, man, like the dude's a player. He's a playmaker, I guess would be a better way to put it. Anytime that he's got the ball in his hands, it seems like he's doing something crazy with it. So, given the uncertainty in the offense, I mean, we don't even know who's going to play quarterback, what the offense is going to look like. I'm fine with taking the player that's going to fall to me, and that's going to be probably Deebo Samuel 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, I'd be concerned about both of them having great years because I think obviously you can't forget about Kittle. I'm going to take the shot on Ayuk. I have him well ahead. I'm not going to be taking Samuel at his current ADP, but he would need to fall quite a bit. So I'm a believer in the sophomore, and we'll see how it goes. I think that value is just fine in the 6th round. And last but not least, let's wrap this thing up with Seattle Seahawks. DK Metcalf mid-2nd, 6th wide receiver off the board. You and I both have him ranked at 7th. And then Tyler Lockett's going in round 5. He's going at 20th in ADP. We have him ranked a little bit lower than that. So what's your thoughts on Lockett? I mean, it seems like we're buying into DK, but do you have any concerns with Lockett, or is there just other guys you like better?
There's just other guys I like better. It's not that I expect much regression or anything. Lockett's one of those players that, like, I get that same feel as Amore Cooper. Like, he's got those games, but he's spotty, right? Like, you every once in a while you can get a 200-yard game from Tyler Lockett, and then the next day he gooses you, just nothing out of nowhere. And if you're drafting Tyler Lockett, I think you have to accept that that's a possibility. I think the big X factor, though, with Seattle is going to be the change with offensive coordinator. Like, if this is always the Seattle storyline every offseason, right? Will they let Russ cook? What they were doing at the beginning of the season was awesome from a fantasy perspective. So if that carries over, then we could be talking DK Metcalf, top 5 wide receiver very easily. And then, Tyler Lockett could very well justify his ADP.
Yeah, 20 is it's just round 5 seems just a little rich when you got guys like DJ Moore, Deontay Johnson going directly after. I'm taking those guys pretty easily over Lockett, but I think Lockett's just right there in that tier right below them. And you just hope that they're going to let this guy throw, because that's the word right now, is that it's a little bit more of looking like a dynamic passing offense versus trying to force the run, which they did in the middle of the season out of nowhere for whatever reason. So that wraps it up. 32 teams in roughly 32 minutes. Had to be a little bit more generous there with the time, but lots of names to talk about. We're at almost 55 minutes. We still got these 5 questions I definitely want to get to here. So let's jump right into it. Jake, a wide receiver inside the top 24 currently in ADP that you are avoiding. Who you got?
I am super passionate about this take. It's going to be Mike Evans.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
All right, great. So you'll be able to pile onto this one. Current ADP going wide receiver 13 is just, I mean, that's puke-worthy ADP right there. I have him ranked as wide receiver 23, and I'm iffy about that. He did manage to finish as wide receiver 10 last season, but Mike Evans low-key sucked last season. 70 catches for 1,000 yards, but what propelled him to his wide receiver 1 territory was his 13 touchdowns. And just to refresh everyone's memory, Evans gave us these stat lines last season. 1 reception, 2 yards, 1 touchdown. Another game, 2 receptions, 2 yards, 2 touchdowns. It seems almost impossible. Another game, 1 reception, 10 yards, 0 touchdowns. Evans played 7 games last season where he failed to catch more than 3 passes. I mean, all these stats are absolutely absurd. I mean, I can't even begin to fathom how you could expect that or accept that from the guy that you're taking is your wide receiver 1. The main trait that I'm seeking out from not only my wide receiver 1, but also my wide receiver 2, and even my wide receiver 3. Like, I'm searching for volume, dependability. I want to know that my receiver is going to get 10 looks per game and be able to lock that in. And you don't have close to that with Mike Evans. You can't guarantee that he's going to see 5 looks a game. And then especially with what we mentioned before with Antonio Brown having such a better ADP, I mean, it doesn't make the slightest bit of sense to me. So I am assuming you chose Mike Evans as well.
Dude, not even a question. When I saw him as wide receiver 13 off the board, I don't get it. I mean, like, you read the numbers, the number of games with 3 or less catches is unfreaking believable. He was, even once AB got there, he was as far as targets goes, he was clearly third. Godwin was banged up here and there, but I prefer Godwin. I know they're going really close. I don't like Godwin as exactly at the ADP. I got him a few spots lower, but I'd prefer Godwin. I think AB has a chance to outperform him. And again, 5 rounds later, with Evans going, I guess it was, 5 rounds later, because Evans going early round 4. For me, Evans feels more like Tyler Lockett, feels more like Chase Claypool, right? Like, those guys are going in round 5 or 6.
Yeah.
I am not taking Evans over the likes of the Rams wide receivers or Amore Cooper, or even DJ Moore, Deante Johnson. I'm taking, those guys over Mike Evans and feeling a lot better about that. 13 touchdowns is great. Don't get me wrong. But so we are definitely on the same page. That was, out of all the things we've done over the last few weeks, that was the ADP that was just the most shocking to me. I will not own Mike Evans, I guess, this year. Honorable mention, Adam Thielen. I'm dumping on you again. I'm dumping on you again, good sir.
Shut up, Kyle.
It didn't work out for me last year, but I'm going back to the well. We'll see if I learn my lesson. All right. Well, we had the same answer for that one. It was clear cut. Mike Evans, stay away. Wait till if he's sitting there, later round 5, but not early round 4, man. No chance. All right. Wide receiver outside the top 24 in ADP that you think could be a wide receiver 1 that could finish inside the top 12 and put together a big year. Who's your guy?
Yeah, this was a little trickier for me considering, like, there's a substantial teardrop, I think, like, after wide receiver 24 specifically. Like, they drop off to a point where, like, I'm trying to come up with the scenario of how each of these players can finish as a wide receiver 1, and it's super difficult until you get to Jamar Chase. Because, I mean, if Jamar Chase is as advertised and he's the next greatest wide receiver prospect and he's being paired with his former quarterback of LSU, it just seems like all the stars are aligning for this guy to be the next big thing in the league. It also, at the same time, it feels like it's kind of like devil's advocate Jamar Chase season. Like, I'm hearing a lot of, he's maybe he's not, he doesn't do anything special. He's not the route runner that we think he is, or he doesn't win at the point of contact this way. I'm not buying any of that. He became we've seen picks bust before, but he's being drafted where he's being drafted for a reason. The guy's going to be a superstar. I just think if anyone outside the top 24 really has that ceiling, that upside, it's not hard to make the case for Jamar Chase.
Yeah, and I definitely, as a whole, this position, like, usually I look at ADP and I'm like, for wide receivers, and I'm like, man, 5, 6, 7, 8, all those rounds, I love everybody there. I'll take whoever's there. I don't care. This year, it doesn't really feel like that. There are definitely names I like, for sure. But then I'm like, if I don't get those guys, now I'm not liking this as much. Like, I don't want DJ Shark, in round 8. I don't want Cortland Sutton right there. I don't want the Browns wide receivers, really. Like, I don't really want those guys, right? So that's kind of making it a little bit tough because, going running back early. In the past, it's like bank on those mid-round wide receivers. So Jamar Chase is definitely one of those guys for me. You and I are very close as far as where our head's at, because my guy, of course, is freaking T. Higgins, bro.
Oh, that's so funny.
This guy is he balled out last year. He was really, really good. I know Justin Jefferson got the pub, and I love CeeDee Lamb. Don't get me wrong. Like, that guy is going to be a monster. But for what we're talking about here, outside the top 24, T. Higgins going wide receiver 29, beginning of round 7. I freaking love that. I will take T. Higgins in round 6 in every draft. If they'll let me, when I get to the draft, I'll just go up there and put T. Higgins' name right in my draft slot in round 6 and be like, I'll just go grab a beer during that round because that's going to be my pick no matter what. So weeks 3 to 16 last year, he had 5 or more catches in 10 of those 13 games. The dude was just seeing constant volume because they're going to throw the ball a ton on this team. I just mentioned earlier, like AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins all had 100+ targets. That's going to happen again. It might cap the upside a little bit of Higgins and Chase just because Boyd is very solid and does have that high volume role. But I think Higgins is just a dude that, he averaged 12 points a game over that stretch that I talked about with the receptions at 6 touchdowns in those 13 games. I think those numbers are going to go up. I mean, most of that was without Burrow, obviously missing some time there at the second half. I think it would not surprise me if both Cincinnati wide receivers finish top 15. Like, I think they both have a lot of upside there. And I love their values right now, especially when you contrast it to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Like, I know those guys are like established, but they also have a third running mate that is going to see a good amount of work. So, I don't know, man. If T. Higgins hits this year, I'm gonna be a rich MFer, but like if he doesn't, I'll be very sad.
People could very well make the case too for that wide receiver duo over the Tampa Bay duo. Like I won't argue it.
I mean, they're very close for me. I have Higgins. I'm just double checking this. I have Higgins over Godwin and Evans, and I have Chase just 2 spots behind Mike Evans. Like, sure. And so it is very, very close. So there are a lot of teams that have these duos or trios of wide receivers. So I hate ranking guys like so close to each other on the same team because it feels like kind of a cop out. But I'm like, man, these guys are all good.
Oh,
and
man.
So
I did it like 5 times. Jerry, Judy, Cortland Sutton are close.
Yes, sir. All right. A few more here. Favorite target. So these are kind of like the mid-late round guys. So rounds 9 to 12. Who's your favorite wide receiver target heading into draft season here?
I like me a little bit of Mike Williams, current ADP, right at the start of round 11, going as wide receiver 45. I've got him as wide receiver 38, which isn't exactly planting a huge flag, but still higher on ADP nonetheless. Just under 800 yards and 5 touchdowns in 15 games played last year. I'm kind of surprised that we haven't seen his ADP creep up. I don't know, higher than it is right now. Like I remember seeing his ADP a couple months ago and thinking like that is crazy considering, Justin Herbert coming in and I don't know, the pedigree of Mike Williams as a former top whatever pick, which doesn't make my my case for Jamar Chase look any better. But we've talked about it before on the show. Mike Williams, he's given us that 1,000-yard receiving season before. He's given us the 10 touchdown season before. We just need him to put it all together. And I can't imagine a more likely scenario where that happens than like this Justin Herbert situation where he comes in. Now maybe he takes another step forward in his second year in the league. Keenan Allen can't get all the targets in that team. Austin Eckler, he's going to get his, but I think there's plenty of passing volume to go around in this offense for Keenan Allen and Mike Williams to both be very fantasy relevant. Give me 11 touchdowns to go with his 1,000 yards. And I'll take Mike Williams at wide receiver 45 as the steal of the draft all day.
It's definitely somebody that I will end up with a lot of teams as well. I love it. And the thing is, I looked at his stats. He had that 10 touchdown season in 2018 that you mentioned. Then the next year follows it up with 1,000 total yards. The dude has never had more than 50 catches. His career high is 49.
It's crazy.
The dude his yards per reception is just unreal. So, if he gets to, 65 catches, oh my God, who knows what this guy could do? And what the other thing I kind of like to lean into from time to time is, and we saw it with someone I'm going to mention here in a moment, but contract year, man, this is it. He's got it. He's looking to get paid, So I think that's going to just be a little extra on his in his mind to go out there and put up a big year. He's going to have the opportunities, I think. So
who else is looking to get paid?
Well, this guy got paid. He was in his career year last year. He completely sucked for 3 straight years. They declined his 5th-year option, and he was in that same class as Mike Williams. I'm going with Corey Davis. He's going around 11. So he's definitely fits in this 9 to 12 range. Wide receiver 49 off the board. Do I think he has extreme upside? I don't think so, but I think he can be a wide receiver 2. I think he's going to be in an offense that should, is going to have to throw the ball enough. That defense is going to be turning around with the new regime, but I still think that like I mentioned earlier, Corey Davis, they brought him in, they paid him. He is the one, what he does, no one else on that team does. He could be the outside receiver. I love Elijah Moore. I do, but and there's plenty to go around for both. But I mean, we've heard really good reports about him, Zack Wilson. He was on the preseason week 1 stat, which I don't really put a lot into, but like you can point to that too as well. He ran 4 routes. He was targeted on every single one. I mean, Zack Wilson's looking this guy's way, and he's going just dirt cheap right now at the back end of round 11. So I'll take Corey Davis as my guy there. I like Mike Williams as well. I thought that was one that you might throw out there. So these are both guys that are similar as far as, been in the league for a while. Haven't seen those extreme breakouts put together yet. I like Williams' upside a bunch, but I think Davis has a nice upside to be a really, really good wide receiver 3 that you can get in the double-digit rounds. So we'll go.
Yeah, I don't think Davis is nearly as bad as people like to make him out to be. And just, a change of scenery. We don't know if Zack Wilson hits, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll totally buy in on Corey Davis. I told you when we went through the Jets, I could totally see a scenario. Actually, you could say it's even likely that he's going to be the wide receiver 1 in that offense, despite all the positive Elijah Moore propaganda we're getting.
Yeah, I have Davis at 35. Like I would take him. I have him 1 spot above Courtland Sutton, but I would take him ahead of Curtis Samuel, all the Jacksonville guys, Pittman, Debo, all the Miami guys. I think he's somebody that's super safe but also has some nice upside there. In New York. All right, we're going to go super late here. So these are guys that are outside the top 13 rounds. So rounds 13 plus, sometimes undrafted in a lot of cases with these players. So who's a late round target that guys should be, writing down, keep it on the end of their list for those last couple rounds?
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to give you 2. I'm going to start with Russell Gage, man. He was solid last year as the wide receiver 3 in that offense. Quietly put up 800 yards, measly 4 touchdowns, but commanded 109 targets on the season. That's with Julio Jones in the offense. Like I said before, Kyle Pitts is going to step in, and he's going to be the second most targeted man in that offense. He is going to be the wide receiver 2. But I'd be shocked if he came in his first year in the league and he was getting Julio Calvin level targets. Like, with Julio Jones, we're talking about 160 target wide receiver, leaving the highest passing volume offense in the league. And now all of a sudden, so we can assume that Calvin really becomes that guy now, but are we really going to assume that Kyle Pitts is automatically just going to feast on targets? I mean, I'm not saying, I think they will target Kyle Pitts and they'll target him a ton, but I'm just saying, I think there's going to be a lot of passing volume in this offense. And the next man up on the board for me is Russell Gage. So I'm not calling my shot here for him to come out and be like a PPR monster or anything, but he had multiple games even last season, 10 targets, 12 targets, 10 targets, 10 targets. There's a chance there for him. So I like him as a very, very late super sleeper. Any quick thoughts on Gage, I guess, before?
Dude, yeah, I mean, that was my guy. Jumps out really? A lot of things you said. I'm going with the Falcon for the second week in a row here, but this one I feel really good about. This guy is being forgotten. He had 110 targets last year. Julio had 68. He was injured, right? And I get Pitts is going to get peppered. Hayden Hurst was peppered. He had 80 plus targets in this offense already. So, that he was, and that ranks really high. And I wish I could pull it up, but I don't want to risk being booted out of my own show because my internet's shit. But Hurst already had a lot of targets. So, give freaking Pitts all of Julio's. And if you tell me that Russell Gage is still going to be on the 110 pace, yeah, that's a guy that I definitely want to just take a stab at the end of my draft. You mentioned it. The team that's going to throw the most in the NFL, I think it's right there. I think you're looking at Atlanta, Cincinnati, and Dallas. And Gage is the cheapest option on any of those. He had 7 or more targets in half his games. So, I mean, that's a guy that I think can do that again and be a solid option for you. So, yeah, he's going around end of round 14 right now. He's free. Why not take the shot? So, yeah, we're on the same page there. Who's your second guy? That way we'll fill it out with that.
Yeah, this isn't just a guy. I'm thinking I'm going to also make this my guy, along with being a late round pick. I am going to try my damnedest to leave every single draft with Rondale Moore.
Challenge accepted. I'm going to pick here in round 2. I'm going to take him.
Yeah, people are sleeping on this guy, man. He's pretty much going undrafted right now, 17th round ADP. And I'm telling you, as a guy with 0 scouting expertise, no cold hard data to back it up, Rondale Moore is going to be a superstar in the NFL. He's not going to be a stud or a beast or an animal. Rondale Moore is going to be a superstar in this league. Yeah. This is one where I am calling my shot. I said it before. After Nuke, his only real competition comes in the form of 33-year-old washed up wide receiver who's going to end up on the IR by week 4. What we're seeing out of training camp is already just nothing but good stuff. It's exactly what I wanted, what I hoped for with Rondale Moore coming into the league. Like Arizona, they understand the versatility of the guy that they drafted. So you're going to see him doing he's going to be in the backfield. He's going to be taking handoffs. Like it's not going to he's going to produce in other forms than just catching the ball. They're going to do everything they can to get this guy the ball in open space and let him do what he does best, which is make people miss. The guy is shifty, he is slippery, and he's hard to tackle. So if AJ Green is not part of the picture anymore, I just don't see any way that this guy isn't fantasy relevant. Very, very, very fast. And he's just got the talent profile and the athletic profile to back it all up. I can't see any reason to be out on Rondale Moore. And that is very much worth the last pick in your draft. Like I said, man, call it a hunch, but I'm shooting my shot here. And this is where I'm planting my flag it's on Rondale Moore.
Dang, there you go. I mean, he's free. He's free right now. I like that shot. I was going to throw out there just like some notes, like as far as 13th plus. I mean, a lot of talked about it earlier with Devonta Smith, like 8th round. That's rich, man. And even Waddle in 10th. That's solid. I can live with that. But you're talking Elijah Moore is going round in 13. Rondale Moore is going even later than that. I like Terrace Marshall. Take a shot on it. He's going free as well. He's in that round. He's Rondale Moore priced. And even Bateman in some league, I don't mind it because he's going to be free on draft day too. Like I don't mind tacking him on there. If I got an IR spot, especially, why not? Just plug him in. Then you got an open roster spot, pick somebody else up.
They're already messing around with Rondale Moore from a running perspective in the preseason. 2 rushes for 16 yards in his last preseason game. I'm picturing it on Sunday, watching just like a stupid little screen pass, little 5-yard screen pass, but it's an 80-yard touchdown to Rondale Moore.
There you go. All right. Well, I like it. Apparently that's your guy. You're going to leave every draft with him. I'll wrap this thing up with obviously my guy is T. Higgins. I don't know if I'm going to own all of the CD land that I can, but his price tag is getting crazy. T. Higgins, I'm going to own all the T. Higgins I can get. But I don't think I could answer this if I wanted to put another name with this. If you see a roster and it says that the team is owned by Kyle August and it does not have Juju Smith-Schuster on it, it's probably not the real me. I own this guy in every league. It's like a joke almost that people are always like, God, you always freaking take Juju. Wide receiver 30 off the board right now, mid round 7. I literally round 6 T. Higgins, round 7 Juju. There you go. That's going to be every one of my teams probably this year. I think Juju has just as much upside as any of the Pittsburgh wide receivers. Yes, Johnson saw a ton of targets last year. Juju still saw more receptions, right? He was right there. He has as many receiving touchdowns as Chase Claypool. And he's the same age as these guys, dude, because he's been in the league for 100 years. Yes, but he came in super young. So if it's not T. Higgins for me, I'm going to add Juju to that list. They're going back-to-back in ADP right now, and I would love to take that shot and get him, and I feel pretty good about that. Even Dynasty, folks, because he is probably out of town next year. You can't say that about Claypool or Deante Johnson. So there we go.
Yeah, I like it. It's super easy for people to sleep on Juju too, considering like you look at Deontay Johnson's game log and you do exactly what I just did and you say, oh my God, he's eating all these targets. And then you look at Chase Claypool and he has this untapped ceiling of potential as one of these super freak wide receivers in the league. What do you have? 11 touchdowns as a rookie or something, something's crazy like that. And then there's Juju, who's done nothing but disappoint you for the past couple of years. All that being said, I totally understand what you're saying because for those reasons, he's going to be undervalued. People are gonna sleep on him, and he's going to fall down draft boards. So I can definitely get down with that. I like the idea of Juju as my wide receiver 3. I think.
Yeah, it's just it's crazy to me that he had more receptions than Johnson, and he had the same amount of receiving touchdowns as Claypool. I mean, these guys were all the same: 11.9 points per game for Johnson, 11.5 for Claypool, 11.6 for Juju. But Juju's going the latest. I don't know. So if that's where I'm going to end up. I should probably just start my own Juju Smith-Schuster podcast and just be done with it. But for now, I will end this with that. So, Jake, great stuff, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for stealing some of my guys. I'm glad we're on the same page on some of this stuff. We'll have plenty to disagree with, I'm sure, as we get closer to draft season, and we'll highlight those as well. But last thing here, just want to remind you guys, we'll be back on Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time on YouTube. I saw a bunch of people commented in there. I know we didn't have a lot of time for questions in this show, but bring those on Wednesday night. We will definitely get to everything in the chat. No doubt we'll have a good group again. But for Jake at Jake Takes FF, I'm your host, Kyle August. Kyle Month 8. Drop some questions over there if you need for the show. Otherwise, join us live Wednesday, 9 p.m. We'll see you guys later.